Hi everyone, it's Vu here. Oftentimes on this channel, I'm talking about how a large portion of your success can oftentimes be attributed to luck. I wasn't really any different. And today I wanted to share with you my own personal journey, my own personal story about how I made my first $1 million and then all the attributions to luck. So some of you may know this already, but I dropped out of college. I don't have a college degree. I studied computer science for some time before dropping out. My first job out of college was an internship where I made $15 an hour approximately. I've had an incredibly great mentor through that, which then helped promote me very fast. And then I went from making $15 an hour to about $28 an hour within about 2 or 3 months. And then I was offered a full-time position at around $70,000 an hour. I was only 18 at this time, and this was in 2010, where the world was just slowly beginning to come out of the global recession. Lucky for me, I had parents who owned a home, and I largely stayed with my parents while working full time. What this meant was most of my expenses were paid for. I didn't have to care about food, I didn't have to care about rent or anything like that, and I was able to save most of my money. After about 1.5 years of working, I was able to save up $50,000 from this job and from jobs previous. Now with this money, I definitely wanted to move outside of my parents' house. I didn't want to live there forever. And I was still young, I was like 19 years old or so, but then this is when I was seriously looking about whether I should look into renting a house or whether I should buy a house. Coincidentally enough, I was volunteering at a nonprofit organization in the city called Bellevue, Washington. Part of working for that nonprofit meant that we'd have to select like this new office space in this year. So then, it was very lucky for me, but somehow I got a hold of the city planning for the area of Bellevue, and I noticed that a certain area of Bellevue was being rezoned for very medium, moderate commercial buildings. I thought that was interesting, and I saw at the same time there was a lot of discussion within the city council about potentially building like a light rail through that kind of area in that neighborhood. Another thing to note is that that area had traditionally been very not desirable, and it actually had mostly very low-income families living there. I got super lucky because basically through some completely random chance, I was looking at these plans for no reason at all. What I was then able to find was this foreclosed property in that same area. And again, remember, this was all just very low income housing and people didn't necessarily want to live there. I saw this property that was foreclosed and being sold for $270,000. With $50,000 in my bank account, I had just enough for a down payment. I had some suspicions that this property would do well, but I was really, really surprised about how well it actually did. I bought the house in 2011, and after only 3 years, by the time I was 23 years old, that house has risen to almost $700,000. That means after you subtract a $200,000 mortgage on there, my net worth had grown already to $500,000. This turned out to be one of the best purchases of my life. And I think this is something that a lot of people don't often understand about what exactly is debt and whether if debt is good or if it's bad. In my case, I was able to use this debt, this mortgage loan, which is actually one of the, the best loans out there that you can potentially procure as a first-time homeowner. And I was able to leverage that and turn $50,000 essentially into $500,000, 10xing it. So anyways, after 3 years or so, I was already halfway to $1 million. In 2011, I started a company with 3 other co-founders, and in summer of 2012, we actually got accepted into Y Combinator. Our market cap was $6 million, and I had approximately a 25% share. After you take into account like some dilution and the stock options pool for employees, I had maybe like 20 or 22%. It amounted to like an on-paper amount of about $1.3 million in valuation, but I don't really count that. After 2 years or so, the startup actually failed. So my position in it went to zero. And because it was such an early stage startup, we were actually paying ourselves basically the bare minimum for us to survive. So after a year and a half, 2 years or so, I probably only paid myself something like $30,000. After this point, it was 2013 and I started contracting again as a freelance programmer. This is another part where I got really lucky, but because of my YC network, I was able to find a lot of clients very, very fast. And because of my reputation, I was able to charge somewhere between $80 and $200 an hour, depending on how long the engagement was and how difficult the work was. After 6 months, I was able to save up another $50,000 or so, and at this point, I made a pretty big gamble. Now, as an important note, I do not think gambling is a good idea. This channel is a lot about investments and making responsible and safe decisions. The decision I made was not responsible, it was not safe, but somehow ended up paying off for me, and that's how exactly I got lucky. So with my $50,000, I put it into this investment. I'm not going to say exactly what it was, but if you do the math here, it was around 2014, so you can probably make a guess about what I put the money in. But I got extremely lucky, and within I think 2 years or so, that $50,000 became $500,000. Which meant my net worth at that time was over $1 million. This bet would actually continue to grow even more. At a certain point, this asset that I owned was worth well over $2.5 million. So that's basically my story. That's how I got to $1 million before the age of 24. It started out with a very calculated investment in real estate. But of course, I got lucky there because, even though there was a global recession there, that means house prices were very low, and I was able to snatch up something at basically the bottom of the market in Washington state. And then secondly, I got incredibly lucky because I basically made a gamble, and that gamble paid off. So at this point, you're probably wondering like, okay, so what did that feel like? It must have felt super great. Hitting that $1 million, what is it going to feel like for me? And truth be told, I wish I can tell you that it felt amazing, it felt great, it felt so liberating or something like that, right? But really, when I was like 18 years old and I first started my first job, I had this idea that I wanted to make my first $1 million before I turned 25. And, in all retrospect, that's like kind of a stupid goal, and it's like very, very shallow because money doesn't define you as a person, and just anchoring yourself on that can lead to a really depressing life if that's the only thing you're optimizing for. And maybe you're looking for this glamour story where, I hit $1 million and it's like raining from the sky, and then I'm suddenly on private jets or, flying first class and stuff like that. But truth be told, I changed very little, if not anything, with my life. I still flew coach. I didn't eat out. I still cooked foods at home. I was still very conservative with my money. I didn't even buy like a new car or anything. I continued to drive used cars for the majority of my life. The most valuable thing that it changed for me though, is that it provided me this sense of security and this safety net for me to take greater risks in the future. This allowed me to start another company in the future that would do, a little bit better. But I might not have started that company if I wasn't already financially secure. I also used this money to travel through Europe. I lived in Poland for about 3.5 years or so. And again, I probably wouldn't have been able to, mentally afford to be able to do this unless I already have like a big safety net. A lot of people are thinking about, their future retirement and stuff like that. So they work hard in their 20s, but because I was already financially stable, I could kind of, take it easy, I suppose. As always, that's the video. If you enjoyed it, hit the like button, subscribe to it, tell me what other videos I can make, leave a comment, whatever it is. Anyways, that's my story, and I hope you have a good one.